Guys, today we got another little issue with the TC125 that I'm working on. The muffler had it's seen a lot of damage, and I think that it was not even assembled correctly from the factory. There was a lot of rattle when I would shake it, so there was definitely something loose inside. And on the bottom, just behind the skid plate for the muffler, was a V dent. Normally I probably would have used air pressure to push that out, seal up both ends, put 50-60 pounds of air pressure in it, and heat it up around the area. But that usually doesn't work very good when you've got a sharp V bend or V dent. And not only that, but I had this other stuff that's loose in the pipe that I had to get out. So I'm going to have to do some major surgery, I guess, if you want to call it that, for the pipe. So let's take a look at it here, what I've done so far. Really, this was where the V dent was, and it was right on the seam, pretty deep, and it was busted through. So I fixed it the best I could. This is on the bottom. It probably won't show, but what I'm thinking about doing is after I'm all done with the other part of it, I'll probably flow some brass over this just to smooth everything out. Now here's where I've started cutting into it, and let's see if I can get a light here. You can't see much in there right now, but the problem was there was two baffles that were broken. Here's the furthest one toward the tip, and this is the one closest to the engine. It would be my opinion that these were not spot welded, and they just sat in there and shook until they broke. Because I don't see any, after I clean it up in the bead blaster, I don't see any remnants of a spot weld. I can see some on the muffler. You can see here, and that's, I believe it was connected on this side. This one's kind of hard to see, but I believe that it was connected here, but it wasn't connected on the other side, because this is the side that this piece is still attached to. So that would be my guess, is it just sat in there and vibrated until it broke. So what I'm going to do, I really hate doing it, but this is on the inside of the pipe, so it shouldn't be very visible. I'm going to go ahead and cut this back, because I've got to get back to where this placement was. Then I'll stick a rod through here the same size as these holes, and you notice here that we've got two different size holes. The baffle at the very back has the same size as this, so the alignment dowel that I'm going to use, I can line up both of these. This one I don't think has anything go through it. I think it's just a hole to get to the baffle that goes through here, which I don't have. So this one here does not really need to be lined up. It's just these back two. So let me get this thing cut out, and we'll be able to see a little bit more of what we need to do. And if this is all we need to do, it's kind of hard to weld greasy stuff, but in reality we'll be welding these to the outside of the pipe. So when we get them placed back where they're supposed to be, we'll drill a hole in right where the baffle is and then spot weld it in there. I'll have to do it rosette weld with a MIG welder, because I won't be able to get contact with my spot welder. So I'll have to do rosette welds and then just try to finish them nice. All this will be under the guard, so it doesn't have to be that great, but I don't want to mess up the Chrisman information here, and I just want to make sure that everything is in there good before I close it back up. So that's where we're at. Let me cut this out, and I should be able to place those in there and re-weld them from there. Alright, I think we've got her here. Okay, just what I was thinking. You can see this little bit of, let me see if you can you even see this. See, here's the little piece, so that probably would have went just like that. So that needs to be welded back to this plate, and then we'll weld it to the other side. And this is the big piece that's missing, so it obviously went like this. I think that's exactly what they did, is they forgot to weld along this side, so all this just rattled loose over time. So I'm going to have to, I've got this kind of dampening material on here. I'm going to have to clean this up the best I can. In reality, like I said, we're only going to be welding to the outside and the inside piece. So the oil and debris here, although stinky, shouldn't affect us too much. We'll just have to drill through here and attach this piece, and then I'll take this piece over to the sandblaster and probably try to clean up what I can so I can weld these two pieces on here the best I can. But that's, I believe, what happened. So I've got some cleaning up to do. Let me get some light here. Yeah, I can't see any evidence of it ever being fastened on this other side. So it just sat there and shook. It probably happened pretty early in the life of the bike, actually. Now this other one, there's a, let's see here. See, there's the other pipe, or the other baffle back in there, and it seems to be attached okay. So we're just going to line it up the best we can, reattach it, try to make sure it'll hold, and then we'll put it back together. I had some audio trouble. I don't know what happened. It's been kind of clicking in and out on my videos, the last couple, I think. so I'm going to have to find out what's going on with that. In this clip, I'm taking the piece that I cut out, and I'm attempting to dry the oil up with the propane torch, and it's working pretty good. You just dry it up so that, you know, you can't weld the oil. It just doesn't work. So that's what we're doing here. And once I get it dried up good, then I can put it in the bead blaster and go ahead and clean it up without the beads sticking to all the oil. So that's our goal anyway, and it seems like it's working pretty good. Now in this clip, I'm taking the pieces of the baffle that were broke out, and I'm fastening them back to the piece that was broke off. And I'm going to try to do the welding on both sides of this, both these baffles to get good penetration, so I won't have to worry about it breaking off again, especially once it's welded to the pipe again. Okay, I've got everything welded back together inside here, and I'm laying out the holes where I'm going to do the rosette weld. I can see now why. See, here you can see the remnants of a spot weld right here. They were off 3/4 of an inch. That's why it didn't hold, didn't do anything. It didn't even contact it. These are exactly where they should be, and this is where the holes need to be. So I'm assuming probably, yep, that looks like a spot weld right there too. It went through on the outside part but didn't contact the inside. So let me kind of show you. This is our repair. Doesn't look too good, but it should be sufficient, especially when these get spot welded where they're supposed to be. And I'll be taking this rod, just happens to be the right size, to go through the one that's still in here and then into this one so that everything's lined up. This one back here, I'm satisfied, does not get a baffle piece. If it does, it's smaller than the hole, because you'd have to go through this front one first. So if the stinger goes into that, that's okay. But I don't have one, so I'm going to try to locate one. If I can't find one, then I'll have to make one like I did on the TS250. So let me try to get this put together a little bit, and I'll bring you back for some welding action. Okay, I've kind of got the skin put back on. Looks like it's about where it needs to be. And let me turn this pipe around. And once in there, you can see now that the baffles are lined up with the holes here that I've drilled. So everything should contact now. As I pull it in, I'll push this in a little bit more. It'll come in a little closer contact. Looks like the bottom ones are, the middle ones are a little off. Sometimes that's just how it works. You'll have to, the MIG wire, you just get it started down in the bottom and you start building it up. So we'll see where it goes from here. Okay, we're going to call that good. Get a couple spots in here. Okay, now let's turn it around, see what it's looking like on the back side. Okay, everything's pretty well lined up. I've got this tacked on this side over here, so I'm going to do my first rosette weld. Let's see, can you see that? You get the wire right down in the hole. That's where your first weld is. So there's what the welds will look like. They'll lay flush for the most part. This is going to be behind the guard except for down here, so most of these won't matter. But it's what you got to do to fix the thing, so you just do the best you can. Here again, we look down into the hole, and you can see that where the baffle was and where we want it to go back to. And I think what I'm trying to show you there is the baffles are located properly, and I'm lining it up. In the end of the pipe, I've got the piece of brass rod that is exactly the same size, and it's going through the first baffle that I'm reattaching, and it doesn't have to go through the back one because or the forward one, I guess it would be, because that's the one with the bigger hole. But you can see the rosette welds. They're the two at the top there are really nice. I won't have to dress them up, and that's on the bottom anyway. The others will be behind the cover. And here I'm just having to form a little bit with a body hammer to get that to set down flush. And once it's down flush, then I'll start welding again. You just tack weld it. Now the problem with the reason I have to use this MIG welder for this is you can see the smoke coming out of the pipe every time I weld on it. And the MIG welder is pretty forgiving, but TIG is not. TIG just can't survive in that condition. So once it's all welded up with the MIG welder, then I'll re-weld it basically with the TIG welder, because none of those fumes will be coming out anymore. And here we're just continuing the stitching, and I move around a little bit so that it minimizes the warping from the heat. And I can't really see the flash. I'm hiding behind that tip there, so I'm not actually seeing that flash. But is it right? No, it's not. You should wear a helmet at all times. Okay, now I'm starting the TIG welding, and I'm just going to go back over it all and get it to lay flat, and it'll look a lot nicer once it's done with the TIG. And of course that's on the back side anyway, so you're not gonna see it. You'd really have to look for it, especially once it's painted black. That really makes the bird doo-doo welds from the MIG welder look a lot better. You have to do that with sheet metal or anything thin, because if you try to lay a continuous bead, it'll just flow through the metal. So that's what we're doing here. Is once the MIG weld is done, then we go back over it with the TIG welder, and it levels it out, makes it look a lot nicer. Big puff of smoke there. So I'm not even using a rod there. I'm just remelting the MIG weld so that it makes it look nicer again. And I'm going to do that to the place on the bottom also where the big V dent was. It's still not going to look that great, but there's just not much you can do about it. These pipes are hard to find, and we're trying to get by at a reasonable price here, so this is what we kind of got to do. That dent would have been very detrimental to the performance of the bike, and all these loose baffles floating around in there would make all kinds of noise, and it all needs to be fixed. And I think it'll be a good enough job, so it performs as it should, and looks pretty good too once the heat shield is put back on and it's painted. And you can see there that the rosette welds, they're not going to need much, if any, trimming down, especially since they're behind the shield. And just another look at it all. This is pretty much all we're going to do to the pipe itself. In the next video, we'll take a look at making the baffle, unless I can find one. But this pretty much sums it up. It gets it back to where it ought to be. You can see that looks a lot better than it did. It's all on the bottom anyway, shouldn't be a problem. All right, guys, I think that's going to be it for this one. If I need to make the baffle, then I'll just do a separate video on that. But as of right now, I think it's a success. We've done what we needed to do. Most of it is hidden, so you're not going to have to worry about an eyesore anywhere. The guard is going to go over this. These two rosettes are on the bottom, and everything is sealed up on the bottom here, or the back side. And this still kind of looks unsightly, but it's a lot better than it was. And the dent is pulled out so that the performance is not going to be hampered. So it's what you got to do to fix these old bikes. And I could look high and low and find another pipe. It might cost $250 or more, who knows. But this one's fixed, and it will run just fine with this one. And you'll really have to look to see the surgery that we did to it. So hey, thanks for going along on the ride. See you next video.